Happy Wednesday, everybody. This is Real Talk, and I am Demi Hendrix. I have this beautiful young lady on here today with me, Miss Shakita Andrews. I am so excited you're here. Thank you for being here. What I usually do, I usually have everybody backstage, but today we just kind of wanted you just your beautiful face on screen when you came on. So what I usually do is have everybody come in, let me know you're here. Everybody knows what to do. When you come in, let me know you're in the room. Say, hey, how you doing? And don't forget to share. I am Demi Hendrix, and this is Real Talk. So I'm just going to give you guys a few minutes to get in here. And, of course, I never turn my volume down. Hey, Auntie. Auntie in the room. We're finishing up. Hey, cuz. Hey, Stephanie. We're going to be finishing up Domestic Violence Awareness Month. We're in the end. I'm so excited to have Shakita here. She's going to talk to us about her experience with domestic violence as well as what she's doing and what she did to basically survive and get to where she's at right now. So we'll give everybody a few more minutes. Hey, Sharon. And I am going to put the national, being that I couldn't put it in my banner, National Domestic Violence Hotline number in the comments. Take notes, share, and let me know you're here. Hey guys, thanks for coming. Jessica. Okay, so that number to the National Domestic Violence Hotline is 800-799-7322. Just put that in there. And there we are. Who else do we have in here? Hey fam. Family in the room tonight. Don't forget to share. We're gonna get started, you guys. Again, I have my beautiful co-host today. Her name is Shakita Andrews, and I'm just going to give you little nuggets about Miss Shakita and what she does. Who she is and what she does. Shakita is the mother of 6 wonderful children, 3 girls, 3 boys. Correct?
Yes.
She's also an author of The Unbroken Train to Be Broken. She's also a life coach, y'all, and a speaker. And she also specializes and is an advocate for mental health. She's doing a lot of great and fantastic things. So we're going to jump right into this. So, Chiquita, tell us about your background. What got you here to this day? How did it all begin for you?
To become first I want to say thank you for having me on your show.
Thank you.
You're welcome. What brought me to this point was I actually did experience and live through domestic violence, and it definitely wasn't anything that I thought I would experience, but I did. And the way that I had continued to proceed with my life, I started seeing my children mimic my behaviors. And so when I seen them and noticed them mimicking my behaviors to include walking around with low self-esteem, I realized there was some internal work that I needed to do. And in doing so, I decided I needed to share it with other people, because when I was growing up,
Mm-hmm.
I did not see many people willing to share uncomfortable conversations with young ladies like myself when we were growing up.
It's true. It's very true. Um, I'm sure I'm a little older than you, just a little. And that's a fact. That was my situation. I met my ex in college. We were college sweethearts. He was going out. I was basically coming in. So I was a young girl. He was a little older than me and a little more experienced. Um, I didn't see the physical portion, but I did experienced prior to him, experienced verbal and the mental and emotional abuse. So I was kind of running from that situation into his situation. And when I tell you, I didn't know what the heck was going on at first. It just, I just thought it was normal, honestly. Honestly. Um, did you, when you had your children, at what point did the violence start? Was it before? Was it after? During?
Um, it was in the middle. In the middle. Had 4 children by the time, because I had my first four from previous relationship. I was married before I married my second ex-husband. So I call whenever I'm talking about my situation with people, I call them number one, number two. So number two was the one where the abuse started, the physical abuse started, and I had a similar situation with number one. It wasn't physical abuse.
Okay.
With him, we were high school sweethearts. We got married very young. I think I was 19, he was 20. And we had children, but neither one of us were ready. And, I ended up leaving that marriage because child support papers came in the mail. And,
Ooh.
I was informed that, he had had an affair and had a baby with somebody else.
Oh
So,
gosh.
right. So when I decided to divorce him, I went on ahead and joined the Air Force. So I joined
Okay.
the before I left him, but that was my driving force for why I was joining the Air Force was because I was in preparation to leave my ex-husband. I mean, yeah, never
Mm-hmm.
mind, my ex-husband. So I never really dealt with a lot of trauma that I experienced as a child. Then I ended up marrying number one, got divorced, and I still never dealt with the trauma from my childhood. Now it just compounded the
Yeah.
embarrassment of a divorce and choosing to marry and start a family as opposed to going to college. So there was a lot of parts in my life where I felt like a failure. So then I proceeded on into the military, and that's when I met my number two. I met number two, and he was also in the military, and um, we started our relationship on a not so solid foundation. But had I done the inner work that I've done now, um, I probably would not have started that relationship because there were some warning signs that I was overlooking.
Yes.
Um, and honestly, the way that I grew up, it wasn't a lot of dysfunction. So those red flags weren't red flags to me. So
Right.
abuse for myself and along with a lot of other people, I didn't know what abuse was because it was
Mm-hmm.
already common in my household growing up. So
Mm-hmm.
what was uh, uncommon to other people,
Mm-hmm.
common to me, and then a healthy, whole, and peaceful relationship and world was foreign to me.
Mm-hmm.
So after I got out of the marriage with number two, that's when I sat still and really started doing a lot of work. And I thought that I was okay. Then I seen my children, like I said, and I was not okay.
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
Yeah. I experienced pretty much all of that. All of that. I was an only child, so there was a lot of an environment. I lived in kind of a, oh God, a recluse environment because I was an only child. My parents, well, my dad was strict. My mom was the lenient one. He was the strict one. So I grew up with, honestly, at the end of the day, I just look at it as being competition for my dad at some point, which is where the verbal abuse came. And it
Right.
was like, I was stupid, I was dumb. If I didn't get something in homework or didn't understand something, I was stupid and dumb. And this is what I believed. And then I ended up marrying someone who did the same thing.
Right.
And his background was the same way, but it was more physical aspect. So that's where we came in with the physical form of domestic violence. So yeah. How were the kids through the situation? How did you bring them through all of that with the domestic violence that you had to endure?
Um, if I'm to be honest, I didn't bring them through it. They brought me through. And
That's it.
when I say that, first, I didn't know that they knew I was experiencing the violence.
Okay.
Uh, I thought that because it was behind closed doors, and I did try to keep the volume down and everything like that, that they didn't know. But
Yeah.
one particular day, I overheard my girls having a conversation because my 3 girls are the older of all my children, and the boys are the babies.
Okay.
So they were having a conversation amongst themselves, and um, they were just talking about some of the things that they didn't like happening to me. And while they were discussing the domestic violence amongst themselves, they were discussing what they could hear. So they can hear
Mm-hmm.
thuds and or me screaming and crying or whatever it is, they couldn't see it. So because they can see it, hear it, and not see it, they put together their own vision of it. And so hearing them talk about it stopped me on my tracks. And it was like, okay, I really need to do something about this because
Mm-hmm.
I grew up watching domestic violence. I really watched physical abuse happen um, by the hands of my dad to my mom. And when I was younger, I used to want to try to save my mom. I always
I
wanted to try to
get
save.
it.
And then I ended up in my own situation, um, pretty similar to hers. And then my girls, when I heard them, I was like, if I don't stop this, they're going to repeat the same pattern
Mm-hmm.
because they think that it's okay. So I actually sent them to number one, I sent them to their dad, sent them to go stay with him while me and number two were going through my divorce.
Okay.
And it was a very, very trying season, especially after they left. The abuse actually became much more volatile towards me.
Mm.
Um, it became really bad. So
Uh-oh, we're losing signal on you.
I was very, very glad that I did my. I'm sorry.
Said we're losing signal. We were pausing there. Sorry about that. Yeah, it's pausing a little bit.
Okay,
Okay, we got
my
you
children
now.
might
We
be on.
got you. I
Okay.
get it.
Um,
Yeah, I get it.
yes, my children probably upstairs on their Chromebooks doing YouTube and homework. They're supposed to be doing
Uh-huh.
homework, but they might be on YouTube. But
Uh-huh.
I took them away, and I was just like, okay, I'm gonna work on me and work on getting this help. Like I said, it became more volatile when they left, and one particular night, I could have lost my life, and that particular night, I was just like, I can't.
That was it.
That was it.
Wow. Did he ever spend any time in jail? Were the police ever at your home?
Um, Jail, no. I started laughing, not
I
because it's
get
not because it's money, but one particular night I fought back, and I fought back with everything that I had, and that night he had me arrested. So
look, I'm
I
trying.
was arrested. I was arrested. But yeah, I
Did
I
what was their solution for you? Just to compare notes. What was their solution for you? Did you have to go to anger management and go to counseling and all that stuff, and while he continued to do, yeah,
Yeah, I had
same
to take
experience.
an anger management course. I sat in a holding cell for 12 hours. He had to bond me out, and he bonded me out, and he paid my fine. They never
Wow.
they never charged me with domestic violence because they knew, because once I talked to them and we really had a conversation, and even he talked to them, they informed me, they was like, well, you're the one with the bruises on your hands.
Mm,
They showing that I'm the aggressor. They couldn't see any reason why he was the aggressor. And I was just
wow.
like, okay. So that really that took away my faith in the police department out here
Yeah.
in Vegas when it came
Ah,
to domestic violence. There were a few other times that my neighbors called the police, but my ex-husband would lock me in the bathroom and he wouldn't let me get to the door. So
wow.
he would come and I could never get to the door. Or if I attempted to try to call the police, my ex-husband used to snatch my phone out of my hand and he would take it and he would hide it. He would go lock it in his car or something like that. So I never really got the chance to talk to the police. There was one instance where I did go to the police station after a fight with him,
Hmm.
and all I did was call him, and they said that they had a conversation with him, and he is still very well spoken, um, well put together. He still actually is in, he's still active duty. So that's one of the
Ah,
reasons did not call, because my fear was if I
wow.
caused him, technically it'd be him causing it, but if I was the reason he lost his job in the Air Force, um,
Yeah.
he would have the freedom to come and follow me anywhere I went and
Yeah.
to harass me and do as he pleased.
Ah. How did you escape that? How did you, what was that like, getting out of that situation?
I um I started speaking to a few of his coworkers, and I was
Mm,
telling them about some of the instances, the minor instances. I didn't even tell them major situations that had happened. I just wanted to see where they would take it.
mm-hmm.
So he had actually, um, they had actually had him move back on base. And so because they had made him move back on base, I was able to get out.
Wow. And when you left, did you go far, or did you stayed in Vegas?
I packed up a U-Haul truck, the hitch to hitch to the back of my SUV that I
Okay.
had, and I packed up my boys because by this time I only had 2 boys. I packed them up and we left, and I drove 24 hours from Las Vegas to Houston, and I
Wow.
just took, the last little money. I think I had just gotten maybe my tax return,
Wow.
um, 'cause it was the end of February, beginning of March when I left,
Okay.
and I got my tax return, so I was able to gas up, got what I needed, and purchased a hotel in between the trip because I was traveling with small children, and I was
Yeah.
frustrated and heartbroken, crying tears or whatever, but I told my mom the situation, and I drove to, move in with my mom, um, to try to just get some kind of grounding and recollect my thoughts because I was very much all over the place.
I
And
bet. I bet. What's the recovery? What started? How did you go into recovery? How did you go in and maintain being a mom, a stable mom? Because at the end of the day, we still have to be stable at mothering and parenting and making
right.
sure. Okay. What was your recovery process like?
Um, Truthfully, I think I was on autopilot. And I was on autopilot. I knew I had to take care of my children. I'd always been a hard worker.
Hmm.
Um, Again, my parents were Um, my father was abusive to my mom, so it was like my mom was disconnected emotionally from me and my brothers. I was the oldest of 3 boys, and
Wow.
so she was there physically as much as she could be, but she was very much emotionally absent. And
Yes.
a lot of times she took her frustration out on me. So I did experience abuse, more verbal than anything by from her. Um, but all of that combined is it was like, okay, yeah, last guy to bring this is a byproduct of actually what happened is sometimes during my train of thought, I lose it. I do have memory loss. Oh, you asked me my recovery process. Okay, I remember. I struggle with that. It happened so often, and I used to be really embarrassed that my memory was it or is the way that it is. But I decided one day that I'm gonna take my power back. I was like, you know what? If I have memory loss, it is what it is. I will continue to talk until it comes back to me, and I'm ask God to bring it back to me. So
Yes.
it happens often, but to aid in my recovery, like I was saying, I went to her and I knew how to be in this protective work, not really pay attention to what is going on with me
Mm-hmm.
emotionally because of my childhood. And so having my children, I was able to continuously move forward, but I was on autopilot. I was very much so um, distraught that when I sat still and I would just think about everything that I was going through, I'd been through, I would just break down. But I never had a
Mm.
actually break down because again, I never knew that there were many other people who had gone through what I was going.
Yes.
And
Yes.
so, um, like I said, it took my daughters kind of just carrying themselves with this low self-esteem. And I was like, I don't
Mm-hmm.
understand. They're little, they're gorgeous, they're super creative. Like it was so much. And I had reached out for help for therapy with my oldest, and the therapist, she was like, sometimes when your children are acting a certain way, they're just mimicking their parents' behavior. And so it could be that, they're missing something and it's not anything bad on the parents' fault part, but sometimes we're just unaware. And so when
Right.
she said that, I'd already done therapy, but I began to become really intentional with my therapy. And I've been working with a therapist now for probably almost 6 years, almost
Okay.
just about 6 years. And I have become so much more aware, self-aware that I can recognize when something has triggered me and
Mm-hmm.
a meltdown is about to happen. I am much more sensitive to um, a lot of different TV shows, my environment. Like there are a lot of different things that I am more aware with, and
Yeah.
doing all of that, I really just started writing it, which is why I wrote my book. And so in
Okay.
writing the book, that helped me also to release because I think a lot of the recovery is to release, and a lot of
Yes.
times we have to hold in the secret of our abuser. And while we're
Yes.
holding it in, it's eating us up eternally, emotionally, and we're saying, well, for me, I'm the bad person because all these bad things are happening to me, and so I'm not worthy of love, and I'm not this, and then add on to whatever the abusive words that are being spoken over me. Nobody's
Right.
gonna want me, especially with 5, 6 children. Oh, his favorite was, "I'm a bitter Black woman with all these children, and Imma be a stereotype for the rest of my life," type thing.
Oh, okay.
He
Okay.
he
Mm.
came with it. He was a firecracker. He was a firecracker. That's an understatement. But he used to say some of the most hurtful things, and I took
Yeah.
it at face value, and I took it as that was what I was worth until I was like, I'm just gonna have to find out another way because this ain't it.
Yeah. I think uh, the worst part for me, just like you were saying, he would have those little, he would say whatever he wanted to say to you, just the level of disrespect. I was adopted, and he would say things like, "You don't even know who your mom and your dad is. You're never gonna amount to any, but you're what did he tell me? He told me one day, and I literally started laughing. I was like, wait, what? Being a product of um basically the system, and it's like, really? So I could so relate to that. And also, backing up a little bit to the memory loss, I too have it. And it's crazy because I didn't realize that until maybe recently. I knew I had, like, I just thought it was age. And I honestly, I dream a lot. I dream a lot. And I dreamed that and this is just recently, he hit me across my head. And I remember waking up next to him not knowing what was going on. I literally thought I was living or reliving this situation again. And it came to me, that's where some of because I could, and it's not just going into another room, getting what I was going in there for, but I could write it down, take a picture, and still forget. So I related to that,
Yes.
and I truly believe that was just the force that was reminding me or letting me know that's what it was. So I totally relate to that. How are you? So the book, I do want to back up to the book. Tell us a
Okay.
little bit about that book.
Okay. So my book, I have my daughter. She was like, "Mommy, I'm gonna put it where you can reach it." So, my book is called The Unbroken: Trained to Be Broken.
Beautiful,
Thank you.
beautiful.
And when I started writing my book, I was just writing. I didn't have a title yet. I was struggling to come up with a title because I don't know what it was, but I was just struggling to come up with a title. And I think during that time, I didn't realize how severe my memory loss was. Um, but I just knew that I was always just kind of struggling to connect dots. Like it was like I would start it, I would go on about my business and kind of forget about it. And then when I would get ready to pick it back up, I would hear I would remember certain things that he would say to me and, just how worthless I was and, nobody would
Mm-hmm.
hear me.
Mm-hmm.
Um, I remember praying one particular, I think, afternoon, my children were at school and the house was quiet. I had gotten off of work early. And as I was sitting there, it was like God just put it in my spirit. He was like, if I made you in my image, like why are you okay with settling for scraps? It doesn't matter if it's in the form of relationships, friendships, handouts from the government. Like it was
Yeah.
so many different things. And I was just like, oh, okay. And then he
Uh-huh.
was like, I made you in my image. And he's like, the enemy's job was to break you down and then show you that you are worthless before you can find out who you truly are in me.
Uh,
And
mm.
so when he said that, he was just like, yeah, you're not broken. He's like, it's like we're unbroken. Like we are created to be in his
It's
image,
true.
but we're trained to be broken by
Yeah.
circumstances
Yes.
that, a lot of for a lot of people that I work with have started since they were little. Like the enemy
Yes.
came for them and myself right after we came out our mother's womb. And
Right.
it was he almost tried to use my parents and a lot of other people's parents as destiny killers. And if it wasn't the parents, then it was spouses or people that we were choosing to be in our life.
Absolutely.
And
Yes.
that's what I experienced. So when he gave me that title, I still kind of sat on it. I wrote a little bit more. Um, but it wasn't until I think I had just had my sixth baby. He was a surprise. He was a shock.
Okay.
Me and my ex-husband had reconciled, and I was trying to give it a shot. He said he'd gone to therapy. He was doing all this other.
Wow.
So we tried, and my baby boy popped up, and I was like, no, you're still the same person. I would much rather do this by myself than ever to repeat that with you again. And that's what I did. So after I had him, I was just like, you know what? I'm just gonna write this book, and maybe it'll just free me. And so I got busy with completing my book, and I
Okay.
completed it from start to end. I went back and filled in some of the details, but really no details. It was like a beginning, middle, and end to
Got
each
it.
chapter in my life, because if I was going to write details after details, that book would be a lot thicker than that. And I was like, no, I want this to be my introduction to the world, just to let them know that anything that they have gone through or going through, it's not the end of the world. They're not the
Right.
only one going through it, and they can get out. There are lessons
That's
behind it.
right.
So I teach to look for the lessons. So that's
Yes.
how I ended up writing my book, and the
Awesome.
title of it,
And the title is, let everybody know the title again for me.
The Unbroken Train to Be Broken.
I love that. And
Thank
it's and just like you explained, we were created by God to be like God. And when
Right,
we came in out of the womb, we were destined, according
right,
to the system and society,
right.
for the brokenness. And you're absolutely right. That's so dope. That's deep and dope at the same time. I'm gonna
Thank
get one of those books too. I'm getting one of those books. I too am working on two books, and when I tell you, the hardest part is, and I decided not to go into full detail on everything, but give enough information, like you said, to just kind of explain what it looked like, what it felt like, and also this is how I made it out.
Yes.
But writing the book, sitting down from day one, has just been a painful process. Reliving, having to remember, and the
Right.
memories, as you said and as we spoke on, they come and go. So yeah, the writing the book, putting it into memoirs, is very hurtful,
Yes.
painful, and just sad when you look at it. So what's next for you? What do you got coming up? Do you have something good coming up for us next?
I do. So with this particular book, I am actually getting ready to relaunch it. I Some heavy hitters had found out about what I was doing and wanted to. One has offered to write the forward for my book, and
Okay.
world-renowned speaker. I can't wait to share it.
Right
Um,
on.
uh, so I'm going to do that. I'm relaunching it with his forward written in it. He's going to also be interviewing me in front of his audience and platform.
Okay.
Um, but not only that, I'm also currently working on a workbook to pair with this one, and
Nice.
I'm working on a second book, which will dive in deeper to the taboo subjects that a lot of people are kind of afraid to still speak on. Um, but the analogy that I use whenever I do have these hard conversations with people is,
Hmm.
you know, as adults, if we look at how uncomfortable these conversations are, imagine how hard it is for a child to hold this secret.
Yes, I agree. Totally
Like,
agree.
right.
Yes,
So we need to have these uncomfortable conversations no matter what, because if
absolutely.
we don't, our children will continue to walk into these certain patterns, um,
Yes,
because nobody is talking about these uncomfortable situations,
yes.
and we're not holding these people accountable who are creating these uncomfortable situations.
Man, hey, it's wild you say that, because I was just telling my daughter, just the other day, we were in the car and we just got on the subject of their dad.
Mhm.
And although we co-parent, and we really don't have to do that because they're grown, but we've come a long way in communicating and getting better at communicating. I really, honestly, I prefer not to, but if I'm with her and he calls, hey, how you doing? But I don't get involved in what's going on with your life or anything like that. But I did make mention to my daughter because we got on the subject. I think I had mentioned an incident that happened, and I kind of felt bad at, because I'm looking at her and I'm like, "Do you get uncomfortable because I'm talking about it?" And she's like, not really. I know about what was going on. I heard she actually intervened at one point. She was 8 or 9, I think it was. She intervened or attempted to. So I find myself talking about it and reliving it out loud. And I do that for several reasons. But the main reason is so that they don't get into those type of relationships, those
Right.
toxic relationships. And they're both single. So me being mama bear, I'm scared about who they bring home, and who am I meeting? Am I meeting the nice guy or a monster, or is he
Right.
both? So I talk about it, like you said, because nobody has these conversations. Nobody. And there were several times where my girls went to school in tears, and
Mhm.
having to have the embarrassing situation where the teacher, when you go pick them up, she's pulling you aside, and it's like, so I totally get that. We do need to have these conversations. It's one of the reasons why I'm using this platform to talk about it, because it's not talked about it enough.
Yes.
um and you can't get it for free anymore either.
No, you can't.
You can't get it when they are talking about it. So, that's why I have this forum, I have this platform, so that we can talk about these things. If it does get it
Right.
a little deep, I'll give you a disclaimer, but we're going to talk about it. So,
Okay. Yeah.
you also, I wanted to touch on you also being a mental health advocate, which is really important
Yes.
for people like you and I who are
Yes.
survivors and trying to, just get past it. I've I've been a survivor for 21 years, and I still have the trauma. I still have the PTSD. What is that like being a mental health advocate going
Um,
through?
for myself, I also still deal with the trauma from time to time. The triggers do come up, they
Yeah,
arise.
yeah,
Um, my I had a friend come over to give me a hug, and I was in the embrace of this hug. I started talking about a situation concerning my ex-husband, and he said my whole body tensed up, and I didn't even know it. Like it had tensed up. So when I speak on or let everybody know that I am a huge mental health advocate, it's because the trauma or the memories don't go away. They're not
mm-mm.
gonna go away. So
No,
you, as a survivor, you have to choose to tell yourself that you were safe. You actually have to logically look at the
yeah,
situation and scenario to say, okay, you know what? I am safe. Even if I think about this person who caused this trauma, I am now safe. I have now taken new aspects or avenues to protect myself, um, various things. And if your mind is already in a state of being in a fight or flight,
yes,
you never get to actually rest your mind. And when you are
never,
not resting your mind, you find yourself walking into situations again where you're blind to the danger ahead of you because you're still kind of
yeah,
blind. And
yeah,
so that's why I really started working to helping on both the recovery aspect, but also encouraging to heal the mental health side. Because even now, I can see certain things from the angle of which my ex-husband did the things that he did and why.
yeah,
And I wish I was not the recipient of his abuse, but I do understand a little bit more as to why he was doing it. Now, the thing that separates him and a lot of other people that I try to kind of push is like some of your trauma you were not responsible for, but you
mm-hmm.
are responsible to do that healing. Like you have to heal or you're going to continue to hurt other people. And
Yes,
that was the thing for me and him. he did not go and get the help that he needed. Um, I don't know if it was per embarrassment. I can't speak on why he wouldn't. I just
Mm.
know the results of what happened when he would not go. And I
Right.
experienced physical harm multiple times until I had enough.
Yeah.
And so when I tell other people, I'm like, our mind is our most important and
Yeah.
powerful tool in our body, but it's the most abused and underutilized. And when it's abused and underutilized, then that's when the enemy can have his field day in our minds, because that's really how
Mm-hmm.
he gets us to you know walk away from God, or think that God doesn't love us, is because
Right.
playing on the mind. So
Right.
how to keep our mind in check, or else we find ourselves doing physical harm to our bodies if somebody isn't physically doing it to us. And sometimes that comes in the form of addictions and or coping mechanisms, which is um,
Right.
shopping, which leads to a lot of people being in financial debt. um, Alcoholism, which is causing people to literally deteriorate, or
Yes.
other forms of drug use, or sex, which is creating all these soul ties and hurting other people, like you exchanging spirits and energy with other people. And it's just like,
Mm-hmm.
does it stop? Everybody was like, well, if you do this, well, I'll do this, or God skip to will. And it's like, all that has to stop, because right now, while you're looking for somebody else to do something, you're literally wasting your life away because you're focused on somebody else. And nine
That's
times out of
right.
10, they're not thinking about you no more.
That's
And,
right.
that's where it's like sometimes logically we have to think on it, because if we allow our emotions to continue to rule, then
Mm-hmm.
we're going to continue to overlook red flags in case we do want to be in a relationship of some
That's
sort. And
right.
that could be even with coworkers or friends or our
Mm-hmm.
children. And especially as a mother, you subconsciously teach your children more per your actions than you do your words. You can tell your
Amen.
child to clean up all day, but if you live like a pig, they're gonna do the same thing.
Yes.
It's not a do as I say and not as I do type of thing. It's literally
Right.
do as I do, but I'm gonna just say this so I can feel better about myself. And it's like, no, we got to take a time out for that, because we genuinely have to start healing and uprooting these issues. And so that's where it's like, even for men, I'm like, you know what? I'm sorry that y'all did not have a safe place to express your vulnerabilities and everything like that. And so it kind of got, I know a few, and it's not everybody, but there are quite a few men statistically who are abused or abused
Mm-hmm.
in that way, because they never were taught how to manage or handle their emotions.
Right.
And I'll even go on to say, share that earlier this afternoon, literally about 2:30, my son was walking home with my daughter. It was my two younger boys walking home with my oldest, and I hear this crying, and I was on the phone, but then I heard the cry a particular way, and I was like, "That's my son." He wasn't even in the
Mm.
house yet, but I could hear him. And so he's just screaming off the top of his lungs. He's at the entrance of the housing complex, and I'm at my house. I'm
Mm.
in the complex, so it's like, okay,
Oh.
and that's how loud he was. He is screaming, and
Oh.
I was just like, oh my gosh, I feel so bad that my
Oh.
daughter had to literally walk with him as he is screaming. And then it was like God downloaded a lesson in just that alone. I was like, if I was walking with him, I probably would have told him something to make him stop that crying, right?
Right.
I would not have allowed him to work through whatever it was that had his feelings hurt in that moment. And as I was listening to that, I was like, okay, well, that sucks. But then at the same time, it was like, well, that's the root of a lot of people's issues just with their
Right.
mind. Is because
Right.
they haven't had a safe place to work from beginning to end with a situation that they're going through mentally and internally. So all we do is internalize it, and because
Mm-hmm.
we're internalizing it, we haven't found a safe place to let it out. Now all we do is react and react, and it's a
Yes.
reactive world as opposed to a proactive world. And I was
Yes.
like, oh my goodness, like we have to start finding and allowing ourselves to be a safe space, because we're also in this world where it's like we take, or we want to pour our mental abuse or verbal abuse on somebody else and think
Yes.
that, that's okay. And it's like, no, you want somebody to work with you while you're going through whatever your issue is. Okay, you
Yeah.
also make sure when somebody says that they are struggling, you don't minimize their struggle. It doesn't matter that it's not important to you. My 5-year-old son
Right.
had a meltdown, and to me, I'm like, okay, well, what was it? He just wanted to walk on the walls by the bushes because he wanted to touch the plants and the trees. I started, I know, I started
Oh,
taking care of plants in my home. So his love for plants has now grown. And he's like, I want to just interact with the trees. I'm outside. And my daughter told him he couldn't at his particular location.
and he
And
was
because of that,
mad.
he was upset. To
Oh,
me, I was like, "Oh, that's nothing," but to him, it was everything. And when we
exactly.
minimize somebody else's experience, then we
Yes.
invalidate them. And so
It's
that's why
too,
I'm like, "Okay, you know what? We really do need to provide safe spaces for those who are dealing with something emotionally and mentally, because whether it matters to you or not, it matters to them. And we
right.
have provide some kind of safety to allow them to work through it, and that's how they learn to put
Right.
anger or sadness or some kind of emotion with an example. And then after they
Mm-hmm.
had their meltdown, now how do we work our way out of it? What are some ways we can do this? Well, communication. How do we communicate? You know, hey, my daughter's name is Taria, and he'll be like, "Hey, TT, I just want to play in the plants next time. And it's okay if, there are spider webs." That's why she wouldn't let him walk through, because there were spider webs.
Okay.
He was like, "It's okay because I like spiders." And so, yeah, but that's a real form of communication. And
Yeah.
we really do need to kind of just get back to the basics. And that
Absolutely.
that's where my children teach me a lot of lessons. That's why I said, I really think that they were the ones that pulled me out. I didn't really do it or pull them out. They
Man.
pulled me out.
Yeah, I had the same resource. I had the man upstairs and my children. I used to tell them when we first moved here, we were in Michigan and I moved here, we escaped here, or I escaped and brought them with me.
Mhm,
And they're daddy girls. They love their dad. And he was a good father to the kids, to them to an extent. There were some lacking areas, but when he was around, he was a good dad. He wanted to give them the world, and he did. We traveled, we did all of that. When
mhm.
we moved to Vegas, it was different for them. It was a whole different world. It was a culture shock because we were coming from Michigan, a little town in Michigan
Mhm.
where everybody knew everybody, and it was just kids were kind of preppy and acted a certain way, and their parents worked in the auto industry, so their parents were well off. Everybody did well out there. We came here, it was a little different because now mommy's by herself. We're
Right,
living in an apartment. You're going to a different school where you don't know anybody.
right.
And it was, I would sit down and have conversations with them once a week or so, if not every day. And I, when I tell you, when I was so concerned about them, they were just as concerned for me and help me. I would come home after a hard day of work, and they would sit on the end of my bed and talk about their day, and they would just do stupid stuff. Say,
Yeah,
how kids do when they're talking to each other. Oh,
yeah.
you're stupid. You're,
Mhm.
and they would literally make me laugh. And after they went to bed, I would literally go in my room, close the door, and cry to sleep and praying, crying myself to sleep. And it was nothing but the grace of God that got me through that process, the recovery period. And because I didn't do the counseling, I am getting some counseling, but
Yeah.
this is, of course, years later. And there's other issues that tied into me actually going out and getting the counseling. Again, it goes back to the history and where it all began and up to today.
Right.
So I totally get it. The kids, they
Yes.
get you through. My daughter, when she starting to feel down on herself, look at your kids. Look at what you're doing for your children, what you're sacrificing every day. You know,
Yes.
they love you. I took the baby to school this morning, and I dropped her off and took the baby to school, and she crying the whole time. I miss my mommy. I'm like, she just got out the car. So your children love you, and they give you that unconditional
Mhm.
love. And I totally get how little man was upset about wanting to do his own thing. And you're right. We're too busy just, oh, that's not the way you should be. You shouldn't
Right.
say that. And this is why we're in the situation we are with domestic violence. Nobody wants to talk about it. This is why we are about sexual violence. Nobody wants to talk about it. Women and children disappearing every day all over the world
Yes.
to sexual violence.
Yes.
So it's just, these are conversations that we definitely have to have. Um, when you do put something together, you let me know, because again, I'm doing the same thing you're doing. You want to just, you have a movement, I have a movement. Let's work together, let's do it. There's no competition, there's no competing. We are two individuals who are like-minded individuals because of our experiences.
Absolutely.
And that there, is enough to change something. If we
Ab-
can't change it all, at least something. The
yeah.
laws,
Yeah.
the PPOs are an issue for me too. How those are served, how that's handled, all of that.
Yes.
So I'm just, thank you. You just really brightened my day today. You really did. You really
Thank
did. Last week was a tough one. I had my friend Sherry Williams on here, and she has such an amazing testimony. And at the end of the show, she had me in tears.
you.
Like, my hands were shaking, and it was like, wow, I just didn't know it was that deep.
Right.
So being you've gone through it, you bounce back. You're not just a survivor, you're thriving, which is
Yes.
absolutely amazing. That's how it should be.
Yes.
We shouldn't be going to funerals and saying goodbye to individuals that are still losing their lives to this disease, because that's
Yes.
what it is. It's a disease.
It is.
So I really appreciate you being here with me and talking to me about your story, what you're doing. Let everybody know where they can find you on social media and everywhere else.
Okay. So I am currently tying up some loose ends on my website, but my website is www.shakita.com. And my Instagram is Shakita_Andrews. It's my tagline that is on the screen. But that's where they can find me. My children have encouraged me to do TikTok. So you need, yes, I know. It's just like, it's so confusing. I'm like,
I
okay,
know.
I gotta come in here and be my social media handlers because I can't do it. But they're working with me on there, so I'm getting more active on Twitter. Is Shakita_A, and then TikTok is Shakita_L because I
Right
am,
on. I'll be
yes,
looking
I'm
for you
currently
on TikTok.
my last name. Yes, I am
I'll be
currently
looking for you.
removed my last name, so
Okay.
it won't be Andrews any more soon. Um, so I'm currently getting all that off, and
Change is always good, as long as
it
it's good for you.
it
As long
is.
as it's good for you and the babies as well. It's got to be good
It
for you
is.
all. I wish you all the luck. Thank you so much, Shakita. I'm
You're
just
welcome.
going to shout out some people that's still on.
Okay.
Looks like Tanisha was on. And of course, my cousin Stephanie in the room, family in the room, Auntie Sharon, Karen, Thanks, guys, for being here. Thank you, Shakita. I am going to keep in touch with you, close in touch,
Okay.
because I think we work together on a couple of those things we talked about. Now we'll have a private conversation. We're going to
Absolutely.
talk. Thank you so much, love. We'll
You're
be
welcome.
talking to you soon. Okay.
Okay.
All right.
Bye.
Bye. All right, everybody. So let me find it. There we go. Let me just give you the National Domestic Violence Awareness or Hotline number. Again, that number is 1-800 799 7233. And also for our Las Vegas uh, community here is the Shade Tree. That number is 702-385-0072. That is the Shade Tree helps shelter and also counsels the victims of domestic violence. So that number for the Shade Tree again is 702-385-0072. And again, the National Domestic Violence Hotline is 1-800-799-7233. Almost forgot it as many times as I said it, but I will never forget that. Never had to use it. But if you are watching or anyone you know who you know is going through domestic violence, give them those numbers, share the video, go back and share the other two videos from the previous weeks. We're going to be finishing up with Domestic Violence Awareness Month next week. We're going to do something a little different, but we're going to finish it up. But we have to stay on it, guys. We have to stay on the grind. Be aware. Share some awareness. If you don't know, get the information. Reach out to me. You can reach me on Demi Hendrix on Facebook. You can reach me at Boss Lady of Sass Entertainment. And on Instagram, I am Boss, BOSS Sass, SASS 68. DM me. Let me know that you need help. If you just need a little direction, I'm here for you guys. You are not alone. You are not alone. With that being said, we'll see you next week. Thank you for joining. I love you all forever. Smooches.